Welcome to class. Today we're focusing on rib flare and how it affects the whole body. The goal is to feel connection to your lower ribs, pelvis, shoulder, and breath. By the end of class, you should feel more awareness of how your ribs and pelvis coordinate in movement. This class is about exploring, not fixing. We are here to notice and experience how these patterns show up in our bodies. Rib flare is when the lower ribs stick out and lift up, most notably when lifting arms overhead. In a healthy spine, flexion and extension are shared evenly across multiple vertebrae. Each joint contributes a little, preventing overload at any one spot. This balance is essential for core and shoulder stability, especially when reaching overhead. With rib flare, instead of extension spreading evenly across the thoracic spine, the vertebrae get stuck in a flexed position and are unable to extend independently. So instead of many small segmental extensions, you get one big hyperextension at the T12 and L1 junction. Think of it like a chain with many links. Instead of the load being absorbed evenly across the entire chain, it becomes hyperfocused, placing greater stress and strain on a single link. Rib flare is a visible sign of deeper imbalances between the ribs, pelvis, and spine. Common causes include rounded shoulders and excessive pelvic tilt. These are two dysfunctional patterns that are often made worse by a lack of natural movement, such as crawling, climbing, lifting, and throwing. Long hours in a chair compound the problem as prolonged sitting locks down both the thoracic spine as well as the hips. When this becomes habitual, your body compensates. The thoracic spine gets stuck in flexions. The hips lock down into anterior pelvic tilt. The body compensates by extending the T12 and the L1, causing the rib flare. This becomes the default pattern, even in simple movements like walking, breathing deeply, or raising your arms above your head. Compensation becomes a habit, but habits can be rebuilt with awareness and practice. Why does it matter? Rib flare limits breathing capacity. It reduces shoulder stability by giving the scapula an unstable base to move upon. It also alters gait mechanics, affecting the rib and pelvic ability to coordinate. Over time, these compensation patterns become chronic, building tension and leading to joint stress and pain. Today's class will help you identify and feel rib flare in your own body. We will use breath and mobility drills to reconnect the ribs and pelvis to build a more stable base for the shoulders and spine. And hopefully, you will leave with tools to carry into daily life, like standing taller, breathing deeper, walking lighter, and moving with greater awareness. Let's get started. We're going to start in a standing position. We're going to have a staff close by. We'll leave it on the floor for now. We're going to start by getting into our crocodile breath, and I want to talk about that rib flare and that pelvic tilt and how they relate together. When we breathe, as we inhale, we're going to get some of that rib flare, but it really should be that segmental thoracic extension. The pelvis will also go through its range of motion. When we inhale, that pelvis is going to lightly go into anterior tilt. Then as we exhale, we're reversing that. Ribs will drop, pelvis will tilt. Again, when we get stuck in thoracic flexion, this becomes a bigger pattern, and that's what we kind of want to work on. So we're going to start getting into our breath, starting with our crocodile breath, making two big C shapes with our hands. Hands are going to go below the ribs and above the hips in that nice meaty section of the abdominal wall. I don't want to be on bone. I want to be on muscle. Thumbs are going to go into the back, feeling into that low back musculature. Index fingers are wrapping around to get into the abdominal musculature. Palms are pressing into the side body. I want to imagine that you're grabbing onto a partially inflated balloon. And then we inflate that balloon, and you can feel the pressure of the balloon pushing out into the hands. And because of the placement of the hands, in the back, we should feel some push into the thumbs. We should feel some push into the palms out through the side. And obviously that belly is going to push into the index fingers. And I want to feel that even on the inhale phase. And then as we exhale, we're going to draw our navel up and into the spine, and we're going to let those hands clench down lightly so that we can feel that resistance for the inhale phase. So we'll get started with a good number of breaths. We'll probably go 5 to 10 breaths. With each inhale, I want a nice slow 5 to 8 second count. And then the same thing with each exhale. And as you're getting into it, start to notice hands. Where do you feel that pressure? Most people breathe pretty well into the front, into the belly, and really struggle with breathing into the low back, into the side. So it will be normal to feel it in your index fingers. You may not feel it so much in the thumbs or in the side. And if that's the case, add a little bit more pressure on your exhale. Let that hand clench in so that you can feel something to push out against with your inhale. See if you can start to get some action in that area. And then the last thing I kind of want to notice with our hands, do you feel it more, moving more to the right side, either palm or thumb, or do you feel it more to the left? Does the other side feel stuck while the one side is moving a little bit? Now we're going to go ahead and grab our staff. We're going to get a shoulder width grip on the staff. Staff's going to be in front of the body. And I want to imagine that we're trying to bend or break this staff in two. To bend or break, we need that bend to come not just at the wrists, but also at the elbow pits. They should be spiraling up towards the ceiling, as well as the shoulder blades, which should be packing down towards your hips. So I'm actively trying to bend that staff, but I'm keeping it for right now right in front of my hips. We're coming right back into that crocodile breath, just no hands on the side. As you inhale, feel that abdominal wall expand. As you exhale, draw the navel into the spine. And the next thing I want to start to feel is pelvic tilt. As you inhale, that pelvis should start to tilt lightly forward, opening up the belly, getting us a little bit more sway in the low back. As we exhale, drawing navel up and in, we're also scooping. So notice how that pelvis is scooping and tucking lightly. I want to accentuate that movement because I really want to get a sense of pelvic tilt so that I can tell whether I'm in anterior or posterior tilt. So on that inhale, allow the pelvis to really open up forward. Get that big sway in the back. On the exhale, navel up and in. Really get into that scoop. You should start to feel some mobilization into the low back. I want to make sure that we're not moving into pinch or pain. Now, the next thing I want you to notice is your rib. As you inhale and your pelvis tilts forward, notice how that rib is just naturally lifting up. And then as we exhale and scoop, that rib is now drawing down towards the pelvis. This is a relational pattern. They are moving together. Next part, we're going to start adding in our shoulders. So as you inhale, filling up that belly, remember we have that nice bend in the staff. Then as you exhale, scoop, feel that rib draw down. That core should be engaged. We're very slowly bringing those elbows up to our ears. And I want to keep that rib and pelvis tucked together. We're seeing how high can we bring our shoulders without losing that rib and pelvic tilt. So right now, my shoulders are a little stiff. This is about my end range for this morning so far. I want to inhale from here, allowing that pelvis to tilt forward, rib to flare. Exhale, scoop, feel the rib drop, and then squeeze into it a little bit more, pulling those elbows towards the ears, but don't let the rib flare. Inhale, soften the shoulders, let the belly open up. Exhale, scoop, drop the rib as you pull the elbows back. We're going to get in a good like 10 reps. And with each rep, see if you can squeeze those elbows back a little more without losing that rib. And then on the 10th one, when you pull into tension, see if you can hold that tension. And now we're going to come back and we get to play with that rib and pelvis. We're going to let it move, but we're going to hold those elbows back. So I got those elbows pinned as far back towards the ears as I can. We're coming back into that breath. Allow the pelvis to tilt forward. Allow the rib to flare. And then exhale, scoop. Feel the rib drop. But maintain this pressure through the shoulders. Pulling back. I'm going to keep the tension in the shoulders. As my rib flares and I inhale, I'm keeping those elbows pinned back to the ears. And then as I scoop, I'm continuing to keep those elbows pinned to the ears. Good. Now, after you do about 5 or 10 of those, we'll let the arms drop down. We're now going to move the staff to behind the body. Palms are facing away from the body. We're still actively bending or breaking the staff. So I still want to feel my elbow pits spiraling forward. Notice how that pulls my shoulders back. And I want to feel those shoulder blades drawing down the spine. From here, we're going to come back into our breath and pelvic tilts, but I'm actively reaching my arms straight down so that my shoulders are packed, and I'm trying to bend the staff away from my body. I'm still trying to actively break it in two. We're going to inhale, allowing that pelvis to tilt forward, rib to flare. Exhale as we scoop. We'll get 3 to 5 of these nice breaths in. Again, I'm actively reaching shoulders down, actively bending the staff as I move through my inhale and exhale phase of anterior tilt to posterior tilt. And then on the next inhale, as we scoop, letting that rib flare, as you tilt, once we exhale, start to scoop, that rib drops down. I want to feel that core locked in. And then we're going to lift the elbows up to the ceiling. As we on the inhale, let the elbows drop. Pelvis tilts forward, rib flares. Exhale, scoop, lock it in at the core. Actively lift the elbows up to the ceiling. As you're lifting those elbows, continue to try to bend or break the staff by continuing to spiral those elbows out and away. Good. We're going to go ahead and put the staff down to the floor. And we're going to come down and get into our shin box position. So getting into shin box, I am in my left side shin box. My left knee is forward. Left hand is coming down to the floor just outside the hip. I want that palm grounded to the floor. We're going to shift our body weight over to that left hip so that the right hip is free from the floor. I don't want to try to keep that second hip, that back hip on the floor. I want it off the floor. By having it off the floor allows me to play a little bit in that range of motion. And we're going to get into that hip. So grounded palm, letting that elbow pit spiral out and away, similar to when we were trying to bend the staff. Notice how that allows the shoulder to drop. Spine is nice and tall. Again, our weight is shifted over. We're going to start with just some simple knee openers. Moving from this back knee. Nice inhale into our crocodile breath. Exhale as we lift that knee up to the ceiling. Inhale as we let it back down. And I want to add one more thing here before we get into this. I want to take my free hand and I want to place it on my rib. I'm on my right side rib cage at the bottom rib. I want to touch that 12th rib. This is where that rib flare is going to be most noticeable, because what's happening at the T12 L1 junction is where that rib attaches. And so if that area is hyperextending, the 12th rib is going to be the one that sticks out the most. So we can place our hand in there in order to feel what that rib is doing, and that's going to tell us a lot about what's happening at our back. So nice inhale, feel that rib kind of lift. As we exhale, we're drawing that navel in. So even with our exhale, we should feel that rib start to move downward a little bit as we lift our knee up to the ceiling. Inhale, let the knee back down. Again, that rib should kind of lift on the inhale. Exhale, feel that navel drawing up and in. Full exhale as we lift and squeeze that knee up to the ceiling. As we're lifting that knee, I want to keep my upper body kind of stiff and still. I don't want my shoulders to rotate with. So I don't want to turn my shoulders as I'm lifting that knee. I want to isolate this hip. I want to stay pretty stuck at the shoulder and only lift that knee. Once we've done 5 to 10 reps, I'm going to move across to the other side and we're going to do the same thing. Again, palm is grounded, elbows spiraled out, shoulders packed, tall spine, weight is shifted over so that back hip is off the ground. Hand is on the rib, left hand is on the left rib, 12th rib. Nice inhale, feel that rib lift. Exhale, feel it drop as we're naturally drawing that navel up and into the spine, getting a little bit of scoop and lifting that back knee up to the ceiling. And you may notice right off the bat, one hip is a little tighter than the other. Maybe one side has less range of motion. My right hip went considerably higher than my left, or my right knee went considerably higher than my left knee currently is. Left hip feels pretty tight this morning. We're going to get a good 5 up to 10 reps. With each one, I'm squeezing a little bit more into it. And just from mobilizing it, I'm getting a little bit more range. I probably added about 10 degrees more range of motion just simply by going through the action of this. We're then going to switch back to our starting side. Now, we're going to get into the bowl of this back hip. So again, this hip should be off the ground. I'm grounded into my palm. My weight is shifted. I want to imagine that our breath has a weight to it. Like when you inhale, it's filling up a bowling ball, and that bowling ball has weight, and it's moving into that back hip bowl. And so as it fills up that bowl, that hip will lower and reach to the floor. However, I'm not shifting my weight to push that hip down. My weight is still over my opposite. It's more the weight of that breath is reaching that hip to the floor. If you're able to touch the floor, great. If you're not able to touch the floor, not a big deal. This is not about touching the floor. It's about playing in the range of motion and seeing what is available and how it feels so that we can compare this hip to the other hip. So as you inhale, feel that drop. When we exhale, we're going to lift that hip straight up. We're reaching it forward. You can imagine like the bony prominence of your hip. You're trying to get it to move forward. And then the last part is we're going to actively scoop into it. I want to see if we can feel a kind of a stretch, a loaded stretch through the front of the hip, and see if we can feel some tightening and some contracting in the glute at the back of the hip. Again, inhale, let that hip fill up, drop it to the floor. Exhale, it lifts off the floor, reaches forward, and then actively scoops at that last little bit. See if you can feel that stretch. And then how does it feel? Where do you feel tightness? How far can you get it to scoop? Can you get full hip extension, or is it a little flexed here? Are you not able to get that last little bit of range of motion? This is going to be, the hip extension is the opposite of being stuck in anterior tilt. If you're stuck in anterior tilt, you're going to be very flexed between at the level of the hip. We're going to go ahead and switch to the other side, and we're going to do the same thing. Grounding that palm, spiraling the elbow, packing the shoulder, tall spine. Nice inhale, filling up that back hip bowl. Exhale, lifts up, reaches forward, actively scoops. And then again, notice, is it tighter on this side? My left hip is generally my tighter side. It was already tighter when we did our hip openers, and it's tighter here too. So these are things that I really want to kind of notice, especially related to our rib flare. Ooh, and I forgot to add in the rib flare. So we're going to go back and we're going to do this one a second time, which is actually good. It's nice to get a round where you're just kind of learning the cues, and we're going to come back and now we're going to focus on that rib and that pelvis. So as we come back to the first side, we're doing the exact same thing, except now I want to make sure my hand is placed on my rib. So again, I'm in my left side shin box, so my right hand is free, and I'm placing my right hand on my right side 12th rib. As I inhale, I'm feeling that hip reach to the floor. This is putting the pelvis at anterior tilt on this right side. I got more flexion taking place here. I should also kind of feel, if I'm inhaling, I'm feeling that rib kind of lifting up. It's moving upward. Then when I exhale with that navel drawing in, as my pelvis scoops, my rib should feel like it's moving towards my pelvis. On the inhale, since my pelvis is moving away, it's going to feel like my rib cage is lifting away from the pelvis. Now, if you look at my hand on my inhale and exhale, it's not moving relative to the space that I'm in. What I'm looking at is the relationship with the pelvis. As I'm scooping, I'm feeling that rib moving towards the pelvis, largely because the pelvis is also scooping towards the rib. And as I inhale, since my pelvis is moving away, I'm feeling it move away. I want to feel the relationship of that rib to the pelvis moving. We'll do the same thing on the other side. Grounded palm, spiraled elbow, packed shoulder. Inhale, filling up as we let that hip reach. Rib cage should feel like it's moving up. Exhale, scoop. Rib cage should feel like it's moving towards the hip. It's almost like you're palpating and you're feeling those muscle fibers and the direction those muscle fibers are traveling. Again, inhale, bringing that energy is moving up. It's traveling up and away. And then exhale, I can feel those muscles tightening, contracting, moving towards the hip. And notice, do you get better connection? Can you feel it more on the left side than you do on the right side? Does one side feel like it's really well connected? You can really feel that relationship. And the other side, it almost feels like they all move together and they don't really know how to coordinate in the way that I'm talking about. Those will be important assessment points. All right, coming back to our starting side. We're going to do the exact same first part breath with the hips, and then we're going to add another layer to this. And this is going to allow us to see how a tight hip related to that breath and rib then impact other parts of the body. So we're keeping that hand on the rib to start with. Inhale, feel that hip drop to the floor. Exhale, the hip lifts, moves forward, actively scoops. And now I want to turn my right shoulder towards my knee. I'm going to change my position. So I'm turning like I'm reaching my right shoulder to the arrow of my knee, almost like I want to touch that same point. Once I get there, I'm now lifting my hand off my rib. I want to spread my hands wide, extend my elbow fully through that knee, spiral the palm up to the ceiling, and then reach through that knee a little further. Inhale, I'm unwinding all the way back into that back hip bowl. Exhale, hip lifts, moves forward, scoops to lock in first. Then I'm rotating the shoulder towards that knee. Then I'm spreading my hand, extending my elbow fully, spiraling the palm up to the ceiling, and then reaching that shoulder a little bit further through the knee. Inhale, all the way back to hip and rib. Exhale, scoop, rotate, spread, extend, spiral up, and reach a little further. Inhale, unwinds it all. Exhale, winds it up. Now we're going to do the same thing on the other side. Now, my left side shin box moving to my left is generally my less challenging side. It's not as tight. So see how it feels once we get to this other side. Grounding that palm, spiral elbow, tall spine. Weight is still shifted over. Hand is on that rib. Inhale, feel that bowl fill up, reaching to the floor. Exhale, lifts up, moves forward, actively scoop. Lock it in. Then we're turning that left shoulder as far as we can towards the right knee. And I'm already I feel that hip. And now with that hip being tight, when I rotate, man, the rotation is also tighter. Once I get here, lift the hand off the rib, spread wide, extend elbow through the knee, spiral palm up, and then actively reach a little further. Man, it's so much tighter on this side. It takes my breath away a little bit. That's important to notice how one side feels compared to the other side. Then inhale, unwinds it. Exhale, feel that scoop, lock in the back hip. Rotate that shoulder towards like you're trying to touch your knee. Spread the hand, extend the elbow, spiral the palm, and then rotate a little further through that knee. And as we're doing this, I don't want to force. I'm kind of exaggerating my strain and my breath. I don't want to actually push to the point where I hold my breath. I need to be able to breathe even at this end range. I don't want to get into a position where I cannot take a full breath. So if you're finding that there is some strain, back off just a little bit. As you get into that area, you can even play with your breath at that extreme. Can you get some inhale? Can you get some exhale? And then add a little bit more rotation. And just by playing with my breath right there, just opened up my hips and my low back a little bit. All right, we're coming back to our starting side. Now we're going to bring that hand that's been off the floor or been on the floor, we're going to bring it off the floor. So I'm in my left side shin box. My left hand is now coming up over my head. I want my forearm to be relatively flush with the ceiling. My opposite hand is still going to be on my rib cage. And I want to feel it on my right hand side. And we're doing all the same breath into that back hip to start with. So as I inhale, I'm letting that breath fill up that back hip bowl, reaching it to the floor. As I exhale, it's lifting up, moving forward and actively scooping. Now, you might not get as much mobility because this is a much different position than we were just in, so that's okay. Once we get scooped, now we are actively lifting that elbow like you're trying to touch the tip of your elbow to the ceiling. Inhale, brings it into that back hip bowl. Exhale, feel that scoop and feel that lift. Now we got our hands roughly on our rib, our 12th rib, and I want you to at first just feel what that rib is doing. As you reach up, does it feel like it's lifting up and away, or does it feel like it's moving towards that back hip pelvis? And once you kind of get a feel for it, more than likely it's lifting up with that elbow. I want to see if we can feel it wanting, kind of continuing to reach down. We're scooping. Can you feel that action moving towards that hip? And then lifting up through the elbow doesn't pull it out. I want to find that point in which we have tension in the core and we can still lightly play with that elbow. On our inhale, as the hip drops, we should feel that rib lift a little bit. And then as we exhale, again, the action is we're feeling it moving towards the pelvis. The pelvis and the rib are moving in this way together, not away from each other. We'll get to the other side and see if we can feel that same thing. So again, hand comes off the floor, bringing it up overhead, flush with the ceiling. You may find that one side of this position is a lot easier to get into than the other side. That's going to be an indication of some imbalances that we're working on. So same general thing here. Hand is on that rib. Inhale, fill up that back hip bowl. Exhale, it lifts up, reaches forward and scoops. And then we're reaching that elbow up to the ceiling. And at first, I don't want to focus on what I'm doing with the rib. I just want to feel what the rib is doing. Inhale into that back hip bowl. Exhale, scoop and lift. And when I'm not focusing on making that rib cage move a particular way, I'm noticing how it wants to just lift straight up to the ceiling with that elbow. So now we're going to tie it more into that scoop with the breath. As you exhale, locking in that scoop. As you reach, can you continue to feel the rib moving down towards the hip? This is a lot harder on this side for me. This hip is tighter and it's a lot harder to control this rib cage. I have a pretty significant imbalance between one side and the other. And that's largely related to 5 knee surgeries on my right knee, 1 knee surgery on my left knee, concussions, and a few different injury issues that I've dealt with. So this is a kind of a chronic thing that I'm constantly working on in order to keep some level of balance. It's always going to be out of balance, but if I don't work on it, that imbalance gets a lot worse and becomes more painful. So this is not about making it perfect. This is about managing it, playing with it, keeping it functional as possible. All right. Now I want to get into a little bit of our folds so that we can get into the back line of the hip. So with the folds, I'm going to continue to kind of use that knee as our arrow. So I want to bring hands equally across so that knee is splitting both hands. And I want you to push into the floor to make sure that your shoulders are also evenly squared to the floor. Sternum kind of lined up with the knee, with the arrow of the knee. We're going to continue to breathe into that back hip bowl on the inhale. On the exhale, we're drawing our navel in and we're actively scooping. I still want to lock in that back hip. And then we're continuing to exhale as we let those hands slide straight through that knee, trying to keep the sternum reaching straight through that knee. Inhale, we're bringing it all the way back up, filling up that back hip bowl. Exhale, lock in that back hip, scoop it, and then nice, slow fold. As I'm folding, I don't want to drop my head and my chest straight down to the floor. I want to keep my spine tall, letting the hands slide forward. Inhale, bringing it back. Notice how does that feel in the back hip as you get into the fold? How does it feel in the front hip? Where do you notice it? And we're going to do the same thing on the other side. As we get to that other side, again, hands Split the knee so that we're square to the shoulder, to the knees, pressing evenly through both hands. Make sure the shoulders are square. You may notice some tightness in your low back is greater on one side than the other. Again, really good assessment point. Notice that tension in the low back that's different on one side compared to the other. I'm noticing it more in my left hip as well as the right side of my low back. So there's a relationship between those two areas of the body. From here, nice inhale into that back hip bowl. Exhale as it lifts up, scoops, locking it in, and then continue to exhale as those hands slide forward. Inhale, bringing it all the way back up, filling up that back hip bowl. Exhale, lift, scoop, lock, and slide. Again, keeping the spine tall. Notice how does it feel different on this side compared to the other side. Again, this is a significantly more challenging side, and significantly is probably not the right word. I'd say it's 20% more challenging, feels 20% tighter on this side than it does on the other side. And usually through a good movement session, I can get that to reduce down to like 10% difference. The difference is still there, but it's improved. Now we're going to come back to our starting side. Now we're going to play back and forth with our folds. I like to start with a very specific position of our folds in order to assess so that we can compare both sides. But once we got our assessment, now I want to be more exploratory. This is where we're going to kind of play with where we reach. We don't have to focus on the angle of the knee. We can reach forward through the shin. We could reach behind the knee. We can even go against the grain and still get some good mobility in. So, and we're going to go back and forth one side to the other. So we're, instead of 5 reps on one side, we're just doing a single rep. Nice slow exhale as we fold. Inhale as we bring it all the way up. Then a nice slow windshield wiper across to the other side, doing the same thing. By going back and forth slowly, we can better compare how does it feel on the right side compared to the left side. In what ways does it feel similar? And more importantly, in what ways does it feel dissimilar? And we're going slow with our breath. We're continuing to use that crocodile breath. I'm continuing to scoop at the pelvis as I reach. I'm continuing to inhale and kind of fill up this back bowl on my inhale. Once you've gotten 3 to 5 reps back and forth, now we're going to start to expand and open up our shin box. We can let that back knee slide open a little bit. Not a lot. Getting into our fold. Our fold might change. I'm not so concerned about what direction I'm reaching, but I do want to continue to reach evenly through both hands. And in whatever position we get that back hip on one side, I want to find it the same position on the other side. Again, paying attention to what feels similar and more importantly, what feels dissimilar between each side. And with each one, we're going to continue to open up that back leg a little bit more and a little bit more until we get closer and closer to what we would consider a yoga class pigeon pose. But I'm not overly concerned with getting to that final range of the pose. If you're able to get into it, great. Save it for the end and enjoy it. But I don't want to force it. I'm not getting there first. All these other positions that I'm getting my hip into are just as important, valuable, and useful as that nice full yoga class pigeon pose. So focusing on just one position of a pose as opposed to all the ranges and noticing where you can do it well and not do it well. The focus on a single pose tends to create more stress problems then focusing on a variety of poses, even a variety of poses within the same pose. We'll finish up with a cup one more as we're going side to side, really opening up it as much as you can without forcing it and without going into pain. Hopefully it's kind of opened up and you've gotten a little bit more mobility in to that shin box. So now we're going to change and get into our inverted sit position. So my knees are bent. I'm bringing my hands to my hips or a little bit to the back of the hips. If you find that your torso is longer than your arms and you can't touch the floor here and you can only touch the floor by leaning back, this is okay to start with, but I really want to be more upright. The more upright, the more we're able to focus on that rib. So if you need to have something underneath the hands, like a book, a wood block, a yoga block, a blanket, something that gets you good grounding through the palms so that you can keep your hands at your hips. Fingers can be forward, to the side, or behind, whatever feels comfortable. And I want to feel those palms pushing down into the floor. We're going to start with elbow spirals. I want to let those elbow pits spiral out and away. As they spiral out, the shoulder blades are going to downwardly rotate. The chest should open up. I want to feel the sternum lifting up to the ceiling. As we internally spiral, those shoulder blades are going to round forward. They're going to move up to the ears. You should feel some stretch across the upper back. Now I want to bring our breath into it. As your elbows spiral out, we're inhaling. I'm feeling that inhale move up into the upper chest, lifting straight up as my hands are pressing down and elbows are spiraling out and away. And then exhale as the shoulder blades round forward. And now we're going to bring our pelvis into this a little bit. As we're inhaling, elbows are spiraling out, chest is filling up, pelvis is tilting forward, helping to get our spine nice and tall. And then as we exhale, pelvis is scooping. Can you feel some stretch into that low back as well as the upper back all together? Now, the last thing here is going to be a little bit more challenging because we don't have a free hand to place on our ribs. I want to notice on that inhale, is that rib sticking out, or can we feel that rib moving down at the same time that we're exhaling and scooping? Our sternum is lifting with the rib dropping. And that's going to be important because segmentally, I should be able to get a little bit of extension through the vertebrae around the where my sternum is, so that my sternum continues to lift without lifting that 12th rib. I should be able to get mobility in the upper vertebrae while maintaining downward pressure through that 12th vertebrae, that 12th rib. So this is something, if you're finding that that's difficult, that rib wants to stick out, this would be a good movement to practice. Can you feel that rib drawing down on your, as you're inhaling? Even though you're inhaling and inflating up, you're not letting that rib hyperextend. Okay, so for the last thing, we're going to come back to our standing position. We're going to grab our staff and have it ready at hand again. So we'll go ahead and get back to our shoulder width grip, actively bending the staff, actively feeling those elbow pits spiraling up. Moving into that crocodile breath, feel that belly expand, pelvis tilts forward, nice big sway in the low back. Exhale as we scoop, feel the pelvis scoop, rib cage drop. moving back and forth. Nice full inhale, nice full exhale. On the next inhale, as you exhale, we're lifting those elbows up. And now we're seeing how much range of motion do we have with that rib locked down, pelvis scooped. Does that shoulder feel a little more free? Now, I got about 10, 15 degrees more mobility where it doesn't feel very as stiff as it did at the very beginning. So can you feel that control of the rib? And did you get a little bit more mobility in the shoulders? On the next one, as you pull into tension, keep it into tension. And now we're going to do our breath and mobilization of our pelvis. Let the pelvis and the rib extend out, and then exhale, scoop and feel the rib draw down while maintaining this tension, pulling those elbows to the ears. Again, this feels way easier than it did at the beginning. Good. We'll set the staff down, and we're going to finish with our crocodile breath, making our two big C shapes with our hands, below the ribs, above the hips, thumbs in the back, index fingers in the front. And now, can you feel a difference in that expansion of that wall? Can you get a little bit more movement and action into the side, into that low back? Does it feel like you're getting more expansion through the entire wall? You may still notice some limitations, and that's normal. Nothing's going to get fixed in just one day. It's going to take some time. And as you're starting to feel that fullness of that abdominal wall, we can let the arms drop down to the side so that we can relax the shoulders. Continue to breathe into that crocodile breath, but also start to let it move up into the ribs, chest, upper back, side ribs. Notice any tension that builds up in the shoulders on that inhale, and then exhale. Let it release, let it go. Start to let that tension drop off. You can breathe into tension and exhale, let that tension go. You can even kind of like slough it off, fling it off a little bit, shake it off. And when you're done, you should be nice and loosened up and limber, ready for your day.